Royce Lewis loves the IL more than we love barbecuing on 4th of July. Who are we going to add to fill that void? We'll talk about that and more on today's action-packed episode of Locked On Fantasy Baseball.
You are Locked On Fantasy Baseball, your daily fantasy baseball podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, fantasy baseball fanatics, and welcome to the Locked On Fantasy Baseball podcast brought to you by the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. As always, we're your number one source for fantasy baseball knowledge, and thank you for making us your first listen each and every day. I'm your host, Matthew Ane. You can find me at Twitter, X, or whatever you want to call it, at Matthew-Ane. A is an apple, H is an Harry, N is an Nancy, E is an echo, since I have the weirdest last name on the planet. If you're watching on YouTube, please click the bell below to subscribe to the channel and give you a notification every time we drop a new episode. Also, if you can, please leave us a 5-star rating and review on Apple or Spotify or wherever you get your podcast. It'd really help out the show. And if you want a little bit more than what we offer in this 30-minute podcast, you want to go over and check us out on Subtext and become a member of the Diamond Club. By joining the Diamond Club, you get a free 2 weeks, and I promise you won't regret it. You'll find out more at the second half of the show what that's about. This episode of Locked On Fantasy Baseball is brought to you by Booking.com. Booking.yeah. The right way to stay can make you the fan of any city, even your rivals. Check out Booking.com for your stay today. And all right, guys, we got a great episode for you, and I just want to wish everybody a happy 4th of July. Hope you're enjoying some dogs and burgers instead of mowing that lawn, and hopefully you're enjoying us all at the same time. So without further ado, let's get into some baseball. I got 2 start pitchers for you going into next week. I also have some great hitters to help you kind of, supplant the loss of Royce Lewis for the weekend. Unfortunately, he's going on groinedindex.com, as the footballers love to say. And he's probably going to be out for at least 4 to 6 weeks, if not more, depending on what level of strain. Maybe there's a song of prayer that the dude just stays healthy. But if I'm a gambling man, which I am, I play fantasy sports, it ain't happening. He's going to be out. So, we gotta make up for it. We gotta figure that out, and so that's why I'm going to talk about some bats at the top of this show versus some 2-star pitchers, and may not be a third baseman, but I am going to start you off with somebody that has been hitting well, and that is Mr. Andrew Vaughn. Sorry, the wrong button was pressed. Andrew Vaughn has been on a heater, and when a guy goes on a heater, you automatically know I'm saying it, Adam. Andrew Vaughn of the Chicago White Sox, who's only 46% owned, has been great this last week. 6 runs, 2 bombs, 5 ribs, batting .368. Vaughn was on a tear earlier this month, kind of cooled off for a week. We kind of just moved on. Now he's starting to heat back up. I think it's time to buy back in. At 46% owned, you need to add him. And quite honestly, too, maybe he's playing so he gets traded to. Trade deadline's not too far around the corner. And maybe he's going to play up. Maybe they're letting him kind of get loose and goose so that he can kind of get moved for somewhat of a value. And this is great. Maybe he gets traded to a contender. But anyway, let's talk about how he can help you now. Obviously, the batting average is there. Obviously, he's producing. The dude can hit home runs when he is hot. So Andrew Vaughn needs to be added right now. And, without hesitation, just do it. We're already down a bat. Drop Royce Lewis in the IL. Do not drop. And, plop in Andrew Vaughn in his place. I promise he's going to produce for at least the weekend and possibly into bits of next week. We shall see. Andrew Vaughn is going to be a great fantasy asset this weekend, so add him now. Let's move on. Let's talk about Nathaniel Lowe, another guy that's on a heater. I love guys like this. Guys that kind of I could stream in and out of the position all day long, first base eligible. So there is another wow, I guess it's first base top half, I guess. But anyway, Nathaniel Lowe kind of producing is kind of a real good thing for you. Obviously, somebody else, another option. If you don't want to go with the lackluster Chicago White Sox team, you could go with the Texas Ranger team, where there's going to be more runs and ribbies opportunities of Nathaniel Lowe. He's just a little bit more higher owned. He's about 58% owned. So he's still out there in 62% of leagues. He's more on the high end of guys I almost don't talk about. And by the time you're listening to this podcast, he may have crossed the 60% threshold. Who knows? But I think he needs to be added. This week has been bonkers if you haven't been following what he's been doing. 6 runs, 4 bombs, 12 ribs, batting .400. So if he's out there anywhere relatively close to that, you need to add him just to try and catch the end of this hot streak. Obviously, I'm not going to say he's going to turn around and keep doing this into next week, but maybe he can get you another bomb, maybe a couple ribs and runs over the weekend and, maintain that batting average for you. So I say add him. Let's see what happens. If he's not performing come Monday, I say see you later. But Nathaniel Lowe does need to be added at 58% owned. Texas Ranger team is still really good. And let's just hope Corey Seager returns to his lineup this weekend to add some more upside to both the runs and ribs. But let's get moving. Let's keep grooving. Let's talk about Brendan Rodgers of the Colorado Rockies. Okay. Now, he's like everybody's darling except for mine. Now, Brendan Rodgers is somebody that, we all need to kind of add because, one, he's at home all weekend. And you know what that means when he's playing in chorus. Home runs, baby. And two, he's 11% owned, and he's been on somewhat of a heater as well. 4 runs, a bomb, 2 ribs, batting .263. Obviously, it's no 400 batting average, but it's still a realistic batting average. The fact that he's going to be at home is a serious plus for me. We need some runs and home runs production, and Brendan Rodgers could at least toss one over the fence for us without a doubt. The dude does hit for yard, maybe not as often as we'd like, but he does have some power upside, especially at home, like anybody does. I think anybody listening to this podcast can probably step out in the cores behind plate and boom, hit a dinger. So Brendan Rodgers should be owned again. He is 11% owned, so do not pass up on that value. Add Brendan Rodgers now, and I promise, he will be just fine for you. Now, this name I haven't talked about in a while, but I feel he needs to be talked about, and that's Chris Taylor. Chris Taylor, 4% owned, so he's out there widely. He has a wide variety of positional eligibility, too. Third, short, outfield. He plays for the Dodgers, and this is all key factors. And right now, he's looking like he's playing almost every day this week, so I kind of want to say, hey, it's time to play. He hasn't been getting consistent playing time. He gets about a day off at least once a week. But hey, I think he might play all weekend with the way he's playing right now. 4 runs, a bomb, 3 ribs, batting .500 with 8 at bats. I think he'll be able to get in the lineup at least once or twice. He's obviously lower on the I guess ranking style of who I was going to add, but Chris Taylor does pose a threat to come out, perform, and do his thing. We obviously know that the Dodgers have a whole lot of players and contributors that can possibly give him a little bit more counting stats than any of these other guys, except for maybe Nathaniel Lowe. So I think Chris Taylor, if he's playing and you got the green check mark next to his name, I think you add him and you kind of slot him in wherever you need be. With that third base eligibility, it might not be a great, the worst short-term replacement for Royce Lewis, at least for the weekend. And then we can kind of, come back Monday, regroup, and I'll get you a better third base name based off of, who performed through the weekend, and we'll hopefully get some streamers for you. I think Chris Taylor is definitely a fair ad going into the weekend. And all right, I guess I've blown through all the bats for the first half, and this has been great. We're up to our last one, but you know what? That just allows me to break down these pitchers a little bit more, and if not, I could probably even sneak in a little bit more arms and about possibly another bat. We shall see. But let's move on to our last bat of the show for now, and that's Brandon Lowe of the Tampa Bay Rays, 22% owned right now. Brandon Lowe, honestly, is doing what Brandon Lowe does. He's hitting about 250, which that is right on par with his, pretty much what Brandon Lowe does. 3 runs, 2 bombs, 2 ribs. That's a nice week for him. And usually once we start seeing him get going, it gets going. Again, I talk about him here and there throughout the season. Like he's always somebody that I guess people are just kind of upset that he constantly is hurt, which again, completely understand. But when he is healthy, he can do his thing. Last year, through 377 at bats, he had 21 bombs. He had 58 ribs, 58 runs, 68 ribs, 7 stolen bases, and the batting average is nothing to talk about. But what he could do in short stints, especially when he's hot, he's streaky, Brandon Lowe can definitely perform in both, runs, ribbies, and power. So, you need to really just consider adding him. Yes, second base eligible, but he could be a fantastic utility spot and just kind of be like, okay, cool, slot him in. Good matchup, or hey, I got a guy off, or hey, I just lost Royce Lewis and I have a backup third baseman, but now I need to fill my flex. Hey, here we go. Let's slot in Brandon Lowe. He's going to produce a whole lot of power, and at least ride this wave until we're able to find a better replacement for Royce Lewis. But I want to talk about how we're going to have about three two-start pitchers next week. We're going to have another 2 pitchers that I think you need to add for the weekend that you could stream. So you're going to want to stick around. We'll be right back after this. Sandals, sunscreen, snacks for the kids. What do these things have in common? You're probably buying them a ton again this summer. But don't stress about the cost. Use Ibotta and get cash back on all your purchases when you stock up on all your summer essentials. Ibotta is a free app that lets you earn cash back for every time you shop. Earn hundreds of items, groceries, beauty supplies, even toys. So you can make sure that you're beating inflation no matter what you're purchasing. The average Ibotta user earns $256 per year. That could cover a cost of an entire shopping trip, that flight you've been eyeing, that fancy dinner you've been craving. Other apps give you points that don't really amount to much. With Ibotta, you can earn cash back that you can withdraw right to your bank account with PayPal or a gift card. Simply by adding the offer in the app, you can upload your receipts and you're, pretty much voila, there's your money. You could save in over 200 to 2,400 brands and shop over 1,000 retailers, including your favorite grocery stores, Lowe's, Macy's, Sephora, Best Buy, and more. It's time for you to join with over 50 million users and use Ibotta to earn cash back every time you shop. Right now, Ibotta is offering listeners $5 just for trying Ibotta and using the code LOCKEDONMLB when you register. Just go to the App Store or Google Play Store and download the free Ibotta app to start earning cash back and use the code LOCKEDONMLB. That's IBOTTA in the Google Play or App Store and use the code LOCKEDONMLB. Are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day? Do you have to turn down the volume with all that shouting? Make the switch to Locked On Sports Today, a free 24/7 streaming channel programmed for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all that screaming. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't-miss analysis, opinions, news, streaming 24/7 on YouTube or free on the Amazon Fire TV channel app. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, streaming live on Locked On Sports Today's 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube or free on Amazon Fire TV channel app. Introducing the Locked On Fantasy Baseball podcast Diamond Club on Subtext, your ultimate fantasy baseball companion. Rely on our dynamic content this season and get real-time alerts right to your phone, including waiver wire rankings, instant call notifications, injury reactions, and a whole lot more. Stay ahead of your fantasy leagues by joining the Diamond Club on Subtext, where your path to victory begins. And again, like I mentioned at the top, by joining, get a free 2 weeks. You're going to want to check that out. You don't want to miss any of this content we're putting out, where you can get ahead of your league and have the best possible outcome with some true guidance. Plus, if you want a little bit more than just that, you can also ask us questions on trades, pickups, ad drops, whatever comes to mind. We got you covered. Just DM us on there and check us out. Links in the description below. All right, let's get back in this. And boy, oh boy, we're going to start off with a hot one, a guy I like a lot, and a guy that's not widely owned, but ultimately I feel needs to be talked about because he's been fantastic, and that's Andrew Abbott. Andrew Abbott of the Cincinnati Reds has been awesome this year as a whole, and honestly has 2 good matchups. Playing Colorado on Monday and Miami at the end of the week, both not in Colorado. Now, yes, Great American Hitter Park isn't my favorite place to go out and stretch out a pitcher, but Andrew Abbott has been fine no matter where he pitches. So I'm totally okay with rolling him out there. He's been great. He has great movement on his fastball, great movement on his off-speed pitch. Breaking ball, not so much, but it is what it is. He's been super successful. His xERA is a 3.48. His ex-batting average is a 2.24. He's not a guy that's just going to blow you away with his fastball, but again, it still is 92.8 miles per hour. He's not giving up hard contact, which is, something you really want for a guy that pitches in Great American Hitter Park. The average exit velocity is at 87.7 miles per hour. So under that, elite hitting average exit velocity, and still qualified as an elite, average exit velocity for a pitcher. He doesn't give up hard hits at all. He's really good at that. Very rarely does somebody get a hit. He creates good extension, but obviously he's not going to be there on the Ks. He's not really getting guys to whiff. He's not getting guys to chase. The walks I'd like to see down just a tad. And maybe just a little bit less on the barrel end, but at the end of the day, he still does a great job. He pitches very successful this year. The ERA meshes up with the xERA. He's been fantastic. If he can produce a little bit more ground balls, I feel like he can take it to the whole next level. He even had a stints in the minors when, obviously this is only his first full year in the bigs, whereas last year you got like a nice taste where he had well over a K per 9. Now, obviously he was pitching in a very, pitching friendly league. And that might explain a few things, but ultimately I think Andrew Abbott might be able to have another level at some point, maybe second half of the season. Maybe he makes a change to his pitch mix. Maybe there's a pitch that he's been working on, but the kid is really good. And he has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different pitches, and all of them are pretty successful. His worst pitch is his curveball, and he only throws that about like 12% of the time. He kills people with his fastball. He mutilates people with his changeup. He mutilates people with his sweeper because that's at a 154 batting average. A 195 batting average. And even his slider is doing all right. I like him a lot. I think that, Andrew Abbott is going to be a guy that we're talking about all year long. That's a guy that's been successful in going into it. Plus the matchups are good. Yes, I mentioned we need to go and add, Rodgers over the weekend, but that's because he's at home. When Rodgers steps out of Coors, I'm not scared, and Andrew Abbott can definitely handle him. So him going up with Colorado is just fantastic for me. I'm totally going to roll him out there. That's an A++ matchup for me. On top of that, Miami, they haven't been like, this super scary team. Yes, they have Jazz Chisholm and whatnot, but, it's not like they're this blow me away offensive team that's like, killing it. If this was the Phillies, I might be second guessing that start, but honestly, Andrew Abbott's going to be just fine against both teams. And luckily, the Miami start, the one I'm not really scared of, but could possibly be something that you might be a little more of a difficult start-sit decision, is that's at the end of the week. So at least if you start them at the beginning of the week, and then you can make your decision as you're getting into Saturday, whether you got to drop them or, you're going to start them depending on how your week is going. That's a great decision and great time span. So like you could really, have time and see what your options are heading into the weekend. So Andrew Abbott is a must start and a must add 2-start pitcher for next week. But let's move on. Let's talk about Christian Scott. Got the call, got recalled again, and I'm super happy about it because the dude does have good stuff. He's going up against Pittsburgh and Colorado as well. So this is great. Now, Pittsburgh, they have a little bit more of, a bolstery kind of team that could go off at any minute. But I'm still not scared because they're not like super, super good right now. And that's good. I'm willing to roll him out there. Plus, he's been pretty successful. So far he has a 3.9 ERA on the season, which, okay, not so bad. But his xERA is really a 3.48. He has a pretty good fastball speed of 94.3 miles per hour. He is giving up a little bit of high exit velocity, but at the same time, it really hasn't been that many starts. He's only started about 5 games, so there's not enough of the raw material for me to get like a real good look into what's really going on with this kid. Another 5 starts can completely swing this entirely. So right now I'm just giving you my raw take on what he is. Now we can go and we can kind of break down, who Christian Scott is, as a whole, and we can look at his minor league stats and kind of go from there. Here, I'll pull it up real quick. Christian Scott in the minors was somebody that, everybody pretty much was anticipating getting the call up, because before he got the call up, he had a 2.76 ERA in AAA last year through 42 innings and had 55 strikeouts with a sub-1 WHIP. He really did show out in all levels of his minor league career. So there is that upside, both strikeouts, going deep, and suppressing the ERA, suppressing runs. I apologize. So I'm definitely willing to roll him out there. Obviously, I don't really need to say too much on the Colorado end. And we already covered the Pittsburgh end. So I guess we could pretty much move on from him and, get into these other pitchers. I have one more, 2-star pitcher for the week, for next week. And then I have 2 guys that are going to stream for you, that you're going to stream and be pretty happy with the results. We'll be right back after this. This episode of Locked On Fantasy Baseball is brought to you by Booking.com. Booking.yeah. With summer travels heating up, especially travel for baseball games, it's time to explore those U.S. cities, and it's always secretly wanted to learn about. Yes, we're talking about your rival city. Plus, with hotels beds, breakfasts, and vacation rentals, resorts, and so much more on Booking.com. You might just find your perfect stay, even in your baseball rival city. Whenever I need to book a night in Philly so I can go enjoy the game and, have a couple beers, I use Booking.com for everything. From booking hotels that are looking at the stadium from family, friends, resorts. Booking.com has so many choices across the U.S. for your summer travels and MLB season. The right stay can make you a fan of a U.S. city, even your rivals. Book today on Booking.com on the site or on the app at Booking.com app. I love going to baseball games with my friends and family. There's nothing better than drinking a beer and eating a dog at the ball game. So when I go to the game, I use the Game Time app. Game Time is the authorized ticket marketplace for MLB, which makes getting tickets faster and easier. Prices on the Game Time app actually go down as we get closer to first pitch, with killer deals and last-minute tickets, all-in-one prices, views from your seats, and the lowest price guaranteed. Game Time takes the guessing work out of buying MLB tickets. Last-minute ticket deals save up to 60% off buying last minutes for sports, concerts, comedy, theater, and more. Save even more with exclusive in-app deals and select seats ahead of the game events. Save even more when you choose a section and let Game Time choose your seat. Toggle through this feature and show the total upfront with no surprise fee at checkout. Get a panoramic view of your seat in the app right before you buy it, so you make sure you're not sitting behind a pole. And Game Time has the lowest price guaranteed, or Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. Game Time ticket coverage, it covers your purchase with the most flexible customer service policy in ticketing industry. Take the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem the code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. All right, and we are on the latter half of this episode, and I am excited to talk about these next couple of guys. Now, this one isn't the most exciting name out of the two start pitchers, but at the same time, I still think they're good matchups, and I'm willing to roll them out there, and that's Ben Lively. Ben Lively is going up against the Detroit Tigers and the Tampa Bay Rays, which honestly, not mad about. And you know what? Ben Lively is playing for the Guardians right now and is pitching quite well, even though the underlying stats are saying otherwise. I like Ben Lively for these two starts. I'm not going to lie. He's been good in this last month with touting over 20 innings pitched in the month, 14 Ks, a 3.48 ERA with 2 wins and a 1.16 WHIP. He's having great movement on his pitches. He just needs to have a little bit more success and, not creating ground balls, not giving up hard hits, and, bringing down that average exit velocity. If he could do all that, I think that, he'll be successful in both starts. So when it comes to Ben Lively, I'm all about it. For these two starts, yes, Detroit is somewhat heating up. I mean, you always got to worry about Green and whatnot, but at the same time, I'm not really scared. And I am a little bit more on the hesitant side against Tampa, but at the same time, in a pinch at the end of the week, I might make that decision, especially if Brandon Lowe has cooled off, then, I'm kind of okay with seeing what the matchup might look like, especially if I'm in a pinch. But, it's all up to preference and what it looks like. But the first stat, I think, is worth a shot to start off the week. But, let's move on. Let's talk about Cade Povich. Cade Povich of the Baltimore Orioles, 10% owned, I might add. So, he's been so up and down and left and right with how he's been with his starts that I know you're probably looking at me like I'm crazy, but, I'm not mad at certain things. Like last week, went out against Texas Rangers, had a 3.6 ERA with a 1 WHIP, 3 Ks through 5. Was able to, handle his own against the Yankees at Yankee Stadium. Only gave up about 2 runs and went 4 innings deep. So I'm not mad at this. He's handled himself against Atlanta, and then just pretty much have gotten lit up against Cleveland and Toronto. So it's not like he's had like a bad season overall, or a couple bad starts. He just hasn't been like as great as we thought he would be. The movement on his fastball has been pretty decent. The movement on his off-speed pitches have been decent. The breaking pitches need a little bit more movement. His xERA, though, even though it's reflecting on the season as a 4.05, it's more of a 3.38. His batting average is about a 2. Fastball velocity is at 92 miles per hour. But again, you don't need a really blow you away fastball to be successful in the MLB. And he's not giving up hard contact. It's actually 86.6 miles an hour. And he's not giving up any really hard contact at all, about 26% of the time. So this is great. Now, if he can just create a little bit more ground balls, he could be really good. He may never be this strikeout guy that, we hoped he would be, but I think there's room for improvement, and maybe there is that upside for strikeouts. We shall see. But I think Povich going into the weekend against, let's see here, Oakland, I think is a great matchup. Oakland really hasn't been tearing it up or blowing pitchers up at all. So I think this is a good stream going into the weekend. And why not? Because they're just as bad as the White Sox. So we shall see. Goes to that. But all right. Let's call it this last guy here, and we'll let you enjoy the rest of your 4th of July, and that's Yonny Chirinos. Yonny going up against the Chicago White Sox, speaking of which, 2% owned. This is more of a desperate play going into the weekend. I'm not really too thrilled to throw him out there, especially with his last start. We got lit up against the Philly, but it was at Philly and against the Phillies, one of the best teams in baseball, if not the best team in baseball, was able to handle himself against Kansas City, was able to handle himself against St. Louis. So in matchups where he doesn't have to, have a tough matchup, he will be able to handle himself. So I'm all about it. Why not start him? White Sox haven't been great. There's, just Luis Robert and Andrew Vaughn and Eloy. Those are the guys I'm pretty much scared of. But you get through that top of the mound, you're able to at least hold them off for a couple innings. I think Yonny Chirinos can get you 4 or 5 innings, get you, 3-4 Ks, and be able to just hold his own and kind of get you some counting stats. Again, it's a little bit more on the desperate play, but you know what? Desperate times called for desperate measures. So if you're in a pinch and you need the stats going into Saturday, consider adding him tonight for tomorrow. And I promise, I can't promise anything, but I feel that he's going to be just fine in this matchup. And if anything, the way they win, the way the Chicago gets their points is probably with their next pitcher in their bullpen. But we shall see. I think Yonny Chirinos needs to be considered for the weekend, not really added. But anyway, thank you guys. I hope everybody has a great 4th of July. Let's not hear any JPP stories where we're losing fingers and, have everybody a safe, happy, healthy, long weekend. I don't think Dom and I will be recording. If we do, it'll be a surprise to both of us, but hey, we might feel an itch, or if there's big news. Also, too, I forgot to include him in the show, so I have a few minutes. Aaron Savale has been traded to the Brewers, and it opens up a rotation spot, and all the signs point to Shane Baz. If Shane Baz gets the call into the rotation, he needs to be added everywhere. I don't care. This is Matt. Why didn't you mention this earlier in the podcast? Kind of type, news. He's 57% owned. If the news comes out that actually, as I'm reading this, breaking news, he is to start as you're listening to this. So if he's out there, add him. So add him now. Sorry guys, I didn't mention him earlier, but Shane Baz needs to be added everywhere. Add Shane Baz now. All right, guys, please like, subscribe, comment, rate, review. Share us with your friends. Share our social media posts. Do everything you can to help this podcast grow so we can keep doing this week in and week out. We love you guys. We love our everydayers. We love our new listeners. And we have the greatest fans on the planet. Have a great day, guys. Peace out.